Okay, hello and welcome back to the CCSE Research Conference, Democracy in the Media. Coming up next is the C-SPAN Video Library API demo. Directing this today will be Dr. Robert Browning. He is the director of the C-SPAN Archives and faculty director of the Center for C-SPAN Scholarship and Engagement. Robert Browning joined the Purdue University faculty in 1981 after receiving his PhD in political science from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. In 1987, he founded the C-SPAN Archives, first at Purdue University and now in its facility in the Purdue Research Park. In 2010, the Archives, where he serves as the executive director, won a George Foster Peabody Award for its work in creating the online video library. He teaches and researches congressional procedures, Indiana politics, and television and politics. In 2010, he was appointed to the Faculty of Communication in addition to his position as a professor of political science, where he serves as the director of the CCSE. He is the author of 6 books featuring research using the C-SPAN archives. And joining him is Alan Cloutier, a graduate of Purdue University and a 16-year veteran of C-SPAN. Alan manages the people and processes behind the recording, archiving, cataloging, and distribution of the C-SPAN video and data via cspan.org and other platforms. Alan's specialties include AWS architecture, LAMP development, FFmpeg tools, database management, and project management. Welcome, Dr. Browning and Alan.
Very good. Thank you so much, Andrea, for that introduction, and Alan for joining us. We're going to show you a little video. We just decided to do the demonstration on video so that nothing could go wrong in terms of all the servers and whatever, but not that we would expect that, but who knows on live productions. And then Alan and I will be back at the end of the video to answer any questions, and we can answer any questions about the structure of the database, the video library, things of that sort. So why don't you roll it, Andrea?
Okay.
We're going to show you how to save and extract data from the C-SPAN video library. Some people want to analyze text in third-party programs, such as Diction or MLX, something of that sort. So we've designed 2 ways to do that. Both ways need a My C-SPAN account. So if it says up here, log in, you've got to log in and create an account or log in under your existing account. So I click on my initials here, and it shows my C-SPAN account. You can save clips, which is very valuable. You can put folders for your clips. You can mark programs, like if you click this little red thing here on this program, it's bookmarked in red, and then anytime that this person would appear or that kind of program would appear, I would be notified. So that's what a My C-SPAN account is. But we'll click on My API documentation, and you see here at the top it says Enable Search CSV Exports. So the first thing we're going to show you is the comma-separated value exports. So you want to have that button clicked. If you don't, you're not going to see the results that I see. So we go back to the main page. And you're going to search on something. I'm going to search on Joe Biden, for example, because I'm interested in Joe Biden talking about crime. So when I search and find Joe Biden, I click on his name. I go down to the appearance stats, and I choose Senate proceedings because I really want Joe Biden on the Senate floor as a senator. And then I click on crime because that's what I'm interested in. I hit search, and I see 115 results under mentions. A mention is a piece of text, a piece of video associated with a person's name. So that's what I have here. Then I want to zero in further in 1994. Because that's when the crime bill was debated. And you can see these results highlighted in yellow where the crime bill is mentioned. So now up here at the top, this export CSV appears. Not only because we put the check mark in there, and that's a download. So we click on that, and down here in the bottom, opens up a file. It opens here in numbers, are in Excel, and you can see here it has Joe Biden, a particular date, a length, a link to the video, and the text. So these 21 text references are captured here, and you can click on that and you can download it. Well, we actually downloaded it, and you can export this into your third-party program. So that's the idea of a CSV file. It's a way to get the results of mentions from a search into a CSV file. You can have many more than 21. You could say, I want all references to crime in the house for the 1994, and they would be all the people who, and you would have different people here associated with it. So for example, if I did starting with crime, we leave out Joe Biden, we go to mentions, we choose 94, we choose Senate proceeding, and we'll undo, because we don't want unidentified people, we want only people who are identified. And you can see here all these people. We do the export CSV again. We get our search results. In this case, we have 346, but we've only clicked for 100. And you can see here Fritz Hollings, Bob Packwood, Inhofe, all these different people, so that if you were analyzing different people speaking on crime, which is the common variable here, you would have all those text references to here. So that's how we get to this search to CSV. So now let's do the same thing here. We'll go into my C-SPAN again. We go down to API documentation. API documentation is a little more sophisticated. You got to go and write a URL and and you need from us an API key, which you just email api@cspanarchives.org for an API key and access instructions. But I'll show you how you can use the forms here to illustrate how this works. Now, we're interested in Joe Biden, for example, here. So we go down, there are different API calls. So we put in this number 34, which I saw in the previous thing, but you wouldn't need to do that. You could, and that's Joe Biden's ID in the system. Or we can go up here to Biden, Joseph, and you can see here it says 34 as his ID. So we need that number in order to go up here to mentions, which is what we were in before. And we put in crime, We'll fill out those boxes. Let's say we want to limit it to 500. We put in 34 as his ID. We would put in a date here for the maximum date we want, which was 12/31/1994. The minimum date, the beginning of the year. Senate proceeding. And you can see here, it creates the URL for learning purposes. This is what you would have to do if you were writing your own API key. You would put in mentions, query, crime, limit to 500, person ID 34, date, max dates, etc. We'll test the function. This is a way to make sure your functions are working. And you can see here, we get 21 results, which is what we saw before, in an XML form. And you would extract that. And so let's try one more. We'll do crime, 500. We'll take out person ID here. So we're going to get all senators in 1994. Takes a little bit longer because we're doing a longer search. We got 845 because we didn't get rid of the unidentifieds. And you would have to do that on your own. And that you can see Fritz Hollings, Harris Walford, Byron Dorgan. So that's as simple as it is. Again, an API is a little bit more complex because you've got to take this URL, send the API key to you're sending a message to our server that says, send me these results back. And you have an API key that says you're authorized to get these results, and then you get them back this way. So that's pretty much what there is to this demonstration. We saw the CSV, we saw the API key, the API calls, and that's generally what we're going to demonstrate here. And we'll take some questions from you that amplify on what we talked about, or any other questions you might have on the video library. Thank you so much.
Okay, any questions on that? There's basically two ways to get one, the CSV file, which is something that you could analyze in another program, or the XML file, which you have to extract from the data from the XML. And let me introduce Alan here, who can also answer questions. Did I see a hand there from Allison? Go ahead, Allison. Unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. That video was fantastic. I have two questions. Is that video available for us to use in our classes, just as like a demo of the API?
Yeah, Andrea, we can make that available on our website. Yes.
Okay, awesome. My second question has to do with downloading the CSV files. I find that sometimes when I search for mentions, it limits me to 20 rows at a time. So for example, if I search for like mentions of a specific congressman and he has 55 mentions in the library, it only downloads like the first 20 that appear, and then I can kind of I can manipulate it by changing the dates and showing the second 20 and getting that downloaded and kind of working that way. Is the 20 a limitation of like my downloading, or is that something that's something maybe about the things I'm searching for?
No, Alan, you want to take that one?
Yeah, the download from the search page should match the number of results showing on that page.
Okay.
At the top of the page, it'll say showing 1 to 19 of
Mhm.
however many. But there is an option there to expand that to 100 results. So you could do 100
Sure.
at a time. And I think, I haven't tested this recently, even if you scroll to the bottom, you can, actually this might not work, but one thing we can look at in the future is maybe making that a little bit more flexible.
You know, and I think that must be what I'm doing, because I'm hitting the show more button and not the show all. I think that just solved my
Yeah,
problem. Thank you.
I think we had, in preparation for this demo, encountered that 21 limit and made sure it wasn't a permanent thing. So that it may have changed recently too.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, Matthew, I have a question.
Yes. Hi, Robert. So you clicked on mentions in the example for the Joe Biden and the crime bill. And would you recommend mentions as being the best, the most accurate representation of the congressional record over that of clips and video as an alternative search for, let's say, Biden crime 1994?
Well, that's a good question, and it has to do with the methodology. What is a unit of analysis? I mean, some people say they want the speech. And that might, and basically that's what a mention would be from the beginning of the speech to the end of the speech, until it changed. Now, if the person's interrupted, then there might be two pieces. If he yielded or said, well, if I can have a few more minutes to finish my remarks. But mentions, I would say mentions would be the best unit of analysis for the congressional record. Alan, did you want to add anything to that? Because you've worked a lot with how we create mentions.
Yeah, it has to do a lot with scale too, because a mention is a specific person speaking uninterrupted. So if you're interested in like a block of text or all the words they've spoken over a time range, just limited to one person, that would be the way to go.
Alan, Robert, could you briefly touch on the search option where it's digging more into the text versus digging into the description?
Well, the description is, we used to say in the evolution of the archives that you said, because we started with Robert Bork nomination, which went for about 10 days. And somebody said, well, can I see the Robert Bork nomination? We said it went for 10 days. And then we said, well, I want the ABA commentary, and we could get you to that particular day. But that still may be 4 or 5 hours. So that's what a description gets you, is to say the ABA testified on the Robert Bork nomination 5 hours. I remember once showing that our index and archive to CNN, and they said 5.4, is that 5.4 seconds? Or 5.4 minutes? And I said, that's 5.4 hours. They were not used to scales of that sort when CNN world. But so mentions gets us to inside the video, where the description text gets you to outside to the books essentially, and the mentions get you inside the book to a particular person, a particular phrase, and a particular set of piece of video. So the gross way to do it is by the description, which would get you to the Bork nomination, and also, and something like the Bork nomination, you have to be aware that Robert Bork didn't appear every day. So you want to use a tag which says Robert Bork nomination, and that would get you all the days. The quick guide, which we put on the front of the video library, is also another quick way to get to some of the more popular searches. But mentions for researchers and people looking in detail is really where, as you saw, we're looking at crime, and people are looking at what Joe Biden said about a particular issue, and they're mining the archive a lot because Joe Biden talked a lot and was on the Senate floor for many years. Other questions?
Robert, we have a question from Emily, and she asks, Does the API allow downloading full text?
No, it's full text of a mention. You're asking whether you could get full text of a speech, I think. Now, full text of a mention for a congressional speaker could be quite long. And so, yes, you would get the entire mention. So if somebody spoke, and they might speak for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, you would get that entire speech, but you wouldn't get the entire speech of the whole House or the whole Senate. And that's a big problem because the closed captioning is not completely accurate. It's typed in real time by transcribers. And so we don't let people see the whole text of a big speech because we're not sure we can vouch for the quality of that. Now, there are two or three cases where we do permit downloads of full text, and that's when we have a full transcript. The White House transcribes all the president's remarks, not the campaign remarks. That was a problem with Trump, because when he gave speeches at the rallies, the White House didn't provide the copies. But we would use the White House transcriptions, and then you'll see at the bottom, it'll say, see full text, because that was done in a different form and they have the ability to correct. But when the transcription comes from the closed captioners, they can't go back. It's over. They're typing in real time. And so there's a few other cases. The Defense Department, State Department put out transcripts, and we attach those transcripts. So whenever we can find a transcript, and we have gone back to some of the hearings and attached full transcripts when they become available, but the Congress isn't very fast in releasing its transcriptions to the public.
Okay, and Emily did have a second part to that question. This is for you and Alan. Can the API XML code be used with an automated text retrieval program, such as a program created in R to collect API data from C-SPAN?
Alan, you want to take that?
Yeah, it should be. If, from my understanding of R, it should be able to make those calls to API and process that data. Yeah, I believe the output is actually JSON. I don't think XML is offered right now, but I think JSON should be fine for R.
Okay, any other questions?
So quickly, what would be one of the limitations right now for the searches, and how can you work around those?
Limitations on the, well, I'm trying to think of limitations. Maybe, Alan, can we do two words at the same time? Could you do crime and violence?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a problem.
I mean, could you do them separately, like you did crime and then you wanted to add violence? Would that work?
Yeah, that might be a good example of limitation. Everything's going to be anded, so you're going to get chunks of text or speeches where they mention both of those things together. Otherwise, you'd be looking at doing two. If you want like an or, you'd be looking at doing two searches and then combining the results.
Okay. So that would be one of the few. You can, you know, the and that's a useful kind of search. For example, if you wanted to find Joe Biden and Kamala Harris together, you connect and that shows the intersection. That's something people have looked at. If you go back in time, we find that George H.W. Bush and Senator Quayle, Vice President Quayle, didn't appear together. He wasn't as visible as the vice president as Gore and Clinton were. So you can see intersections, and that's where the descriptions and the, for example, nobody's done it yet, but we want to find out how many appearances Joe Biden had in his 100 days versus Bill Clinton or Barack Obama, because Joe Biden is coming out almost every day with some statement on COVID or the economy or some aspect of the economy. And so that's where the description itself gives you a count of those appearances. Other questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Matt again. Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
I was playing around with the website just now, and I came across the campaign ads. I actually came across a Paul Simon campaign ad in Iowa, and I guess in my interactions with the C-SPAN archives, I've never come across or thought about C-SPAN archives being a clearinghouse for campaign ads. There's one in Vanderbilt, I believe, that a lot of scholars go to for campaign ad archives. I wanted to know how representative are the campaign ads shown on the C-SPAN archives to what actually happened in 2020 and 16 and so on and so forth. There's president's ads is what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, it's not. We often talk about the video library as a universe of certain things and a sample of other things. And so in political campaign commercials, we would have to say it's a sample. The archives, the Vanderbilt archives is an archive of the evening news programs. And ABC, CBS, NBC, and they've expanded to CNN and just a few of the sort of produced news programs. And in the early days, when there were CBS news specials, they did those. The University of Oklahoma has a campaign collection. So that would probably be the most complete source, because they try to get those. C-SPAN campaigns volunteer their spots because it's what we call free media. If they air on C-SPAN and they can be seen in the video library, they get greater exposure and traffic, and particularly in other areas of the country where they're not campaigning. So I would go to on the left. I would just hit search at the search bar with nothing in it, and you get what we call a null search. And then you click on video, and then the facets, as we call them here on the left side, sort of like you're looking at Amazon and you sort of say, I want 60-inch television. No, I want 75-inch television. So anyway, you go to tags and put in political, and our political commercials will pop up. And that will be a tag on all the commercials, regardless of what campaign it is. And that will show you sort of the sample of what we have. The other, and I also point this out, if you hit the null search, which is search with nothing in it, and then you click on oldest videos, you'll see everything that we have arranged by time, by chronological time. Well, that's the only kind of time. Anyway, by the oldest event. So you can see FDR before Congress at Pearl Harbor. You can see FDR fireside speeches, and you can see some old campaign commercials, and you might find the Daisy commercial in there as well.